Hello and welcome to a new series that I'm doing. This is called the Zero-One Show. I hope everyone is doing absolutely great tonight. I'm doing absolutely fine myself, and I'm glad to have you here if you're joining in with us for the first time. Please remember if you to consider hitting the like and the subscribe button, and click the bell as well to be kept updated of any new content that I bring out. I have shows on Mondays and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, so I hope to see you regularly joining in. I don't think we've got anyone with us in the chat at the moment, so I'm going to go into an intro to get this kick started, and I'll see you after the intro. Okay, we have a couple of people in the chat with us now. So we've got Atheist Mama Bear, hello, thank you for joining in. And we've also got Dustin Pouch as well. Thank you very much for joining us tonight. The co-host for tonight is Scott Williamson, so I will bring him in to the conversation now. How are you doing, Scott?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful on this Friday.
Nice, nice.
Thank
Glad to
God
have
it's
you here.
Friday, right?
Yeah, so for tonight's show, what we're going to be doing, hopefully, is a call-in show. So I'm hoping that we get some theists or atheists as well are welcome to call in. So if you've got a question or you have a topic that you want us to discuss, then please feel free to click on the link at the top of the chat. That's for StreamYard, and I will keep an eye out for anyone joining in to join them in. It will be audio only, so you don't need to worry about webcams or anything like that. Just make sure you've got good audio. So while we're waiting, do we want to have a little talk about the debates that you've got coming up, Scott? You were saying you've got some debates.
That's right. So tonight I'm going to be debating a guy named Pant who calls himself Pan the Pantheist. So we're going to be debating whether consciousness is, or if the universe is conscious. That's the title there. And then Sunday I'll be debating Jack Chilcote. And later on, Victor Vargas again will be debating whether atheism is rational and other topics. So tune in for that. Don't know if that's going to be on YouTube or if it's going to be a Facebook live stream, but that's what's coming up so far. I think down the road they want to create like a YouTube channel. So this is kind of like the beginning stages of that. So yeah, hopefully we'll have some people check it out. Should be a lot of fun.
That sounds like it is going to be a lot of fun. That I did watch your debate that you had with him before about it is on free will.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was you did amazing in that. You really controlled that that debate and had him backed well up into the corner.
Yeah, he was a little confused there. I don't really consider myself like a great debater or all that philosophical or whatever. I just just have fun having these discussions for the most part, and then invited to do the debate. So that's how that came about. So we'll see how my career as a debater will go. Might not go too far, but we'll see.
Well, I think you've got something good ahead of you there. Definitely. Um, are you thinking of maybe starting your own channel and having debates on your own channel, or?
Yeah, one day if I have some time, that's the whole thing, trying to carve out time to put into that project, something like that, and then, figure out like what kind of direction I would want to take.
Mm,
There's so many shows like that. And so, you always want to be creative and come with some kind of different niche or something like that. But then I started thinking about it too, that really a lot of channels are really just rehashes of the same concept. And I think what makes a show, for the most part, is like the personality, the structure, how many guests you have on, like what caliber guests you have on, and things of that nature, which you're doing a really big, fabulous job on that. I don't know if I could do that.
mm.
I just don't know if I have that sort of resource or that kind of pull for it, but it'd be great if I did.
Yeah, I'd definitely suggest giving it a go. I mean, it's a rewarding experience, having your own space, to your own channel to get what you want to say out there for people.
Hmm.
It is very rewarding. I do what I do because I just want to get the information out there about Jehovah's Witnesses, and
Yeah,
learn about other religions, and the reasons why people believe in what I view to be hocus pocus. But
right.
um,
Well, it's definitely a service. I think of it that way. Now, a lot of people think of it just as, just picking on people's religion or whatever, but people have a freedom to change the channel or not watch it. And I think that people that do watch it probably have questions or probably somewhere have some sort of interest where they want to know the other side. They want to know other viewpoints, which is a healthy thing. So by being that resource, you're doing a service. For me, I've noticed that over the years, I just became addicted to some of these atheist theist debates for whatever reason. As you know, I used to be a Jehovah Witness. I used to
mhm.
be part of different religions early on and having that experience. And so it's always kind of been a fascination with me, first of all, but then to see the ideas, the exchanges, and really what kind of fascinates me with that isn't necessarily trying to figure out what position is really true, because I don't think we really know, anything with that much certainty anyways. So I'm not really worried about whether one position is true over the other as much as I'm interested in the thought process, like how people reason things out. And it's kind of like a sport, you get good at reasoning ability. You really hone in your skills for argumentation and logic. It's an acquired skill, and just by me watching so much of that, I've found myself, thinking in those ways, like applying it in my own life, just in everything. Like, is this a logical decision? Why do I decide that? Why do I believe this? Why would I do that? Have some sort of logical entailment behind it. Um, so the thing about it is, it's really beneficial to have these sort of conversations, in my opinion. It just it helps.
And yeah, definitely. I really enjoy having some of the conversations that I've had, and I'm loving the community. There seems to be the atheist community in general online seems to be growing quite rapidly at the moment, and there's some lovely people out there and some lovely conversations to be had. It's just a shame that there's a lot of also hate coming from the theist camp at the moment as well. Whereas I think that atheists and theists can have decent conversations, and we can discuss stuff. And I don't understand why sometimes it seems like a lot of theists just aren't open for those conversations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they
Um,
just want to attack, and that's why I'm wanting to I thought about doing this call-in show here and hopefully get some theists calling in, like when we had what was it, Catholic traditionalist. Um, you know,
yeah. Yeah. There's people that they have an axe to grind. It could be, or there's people that want attention and they're kind of they're in it for the entertainment value to maybe prop themselves up as an entertainer in this genre. I don't know why, because I can't imagine how far this is going to take you, but I guess maybe it will. I have no idea, but for me, I think the greater value is to open up dialogue and conversation, especially about the most deepest held cherished beliefs. Those are the ones that I feel that should be the most examined. Those are the ones I doubt the most. The things that I want to believe the most, those are the ones that I pay attention to the most and that I doubt the most and are really skeptical about. And the reason why is because I know just within myself that I can be misled by my emotions. I can be misled by my feelings and what I want to be true. When I was very religious, I would see God where he wasn't, and I know this for a fact now. But at the time, I wanted to fit in. I wanted to be part of that family. I wanted to say the right things, believe the moral thing, which was God and everything that entailed. But I've come to learn that I was mistaken, and I don't want to fall into that trap again. And so it kind of helps to have some sort of guide. It's called epistemology. Check your epistemology. How do you know what you know or believe, or why do you believe what you believe? And so it's kind of left me where I am today is pretty agnostic about most things. I'm a Cartesian skeptic. I'm pretty agnostic about most things in life, especially ontologies. The only thing I really know is that I'm experiencing some reality. I may be part of a brain in the vat. It may be solipsism. I don't know. I can't disprove it ever. But even if it was true that I was part of the matrix, I'm still experiencing this weird reality. So, and it has rule sets, it has cause and effect, it has all the things that I infer and things that work and things that don't work for me. So that's all you really need based on that. And so I try to cut things down as much as possible, and guide my life by what I know reasonably, instead of going out on a limb and following some cult or following some promises that some salesman told me. It's better to kind of just, keep it simple, go with what you know, and be careful about the things you think examine them. It's healthy. I think skepticism is healthy.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I completely agree. Definitely agree with that. And I try to remain agnostic myself over things because like there is a danger as well falling onto the other side of the fence where you're making a positive claim that there is no gods.
Yeah.
And I find that I know people like that who do hold that view, but I can't hold that view knowing that I don't know everything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There could be that there could be a god. It's a possibility, very very unlikely possibility, but it's still a possibility. So
Yeah. I mean,
I can't discount that.
it's unlikely depending on what we know. Um, it's kind of like the whole fine tuning argument to say, well, the possibility that the universe came just right for life is this number, this big number. It's like, how do you know that number? You don't have, this is the only universe we observe. So we don't have all these other things. And the same thing with God. To say that I know there is no God, well, how do I know that? I would have to be omniscient. I would have to have examine the entire, spectrum of reality to know there's no God under this rock over here or there. So I have no basis to say it's possible or not. I have no basis to say what's more likely or not. It just doesn't seem to, because I can't tell the difference between this hidden God under a rock and the non-existent one. I can't tell the difference between those two things. So for me, I'm valid to not believe, but that doesn't mean that I know there is no God. And then it's not good to have that attitude anyways if I'm trying to speak to people about their beliefs. To act like I know something that I don't really know is dishonest, and it's kind of a shutdown in the conversation. And so my tactic is to just, kind of meet people where they are, try to get them to define what they mean, and have that conversation, and try to examine it. And really, I don't care what they believe. I don't want to change their mind. I hope not. I try not to be that person that wants them to believe what I believe because it makes me feel good in my ego or whatever. That's kind of useless, and it's only maybe good for some sort of ego boost or whatever. I try not to be like that because it's shallow, but there is a value in having that conversation, though, in examining at least, talking about how did you arrive at that belief, regardless of what they end up believing. If they can just question it and be open to that question, I think that can help people and as a society. If we all did that, what better, society would we have? People who actually examine issues, critically, instead of just going by what the leaders say and what, their authorities tell them. I think it's not healthy.
Hmm. Oh yeah, we've got to come to our our own realization of things, and critical thinking is the most important thing for that. For that to form our own our own assertions in life of what we actually truly believe. Um, but we you've got to examine the evidence, but. Like Dustin saying in the chat, but we know there is no God because there's not one shred of evidence. And I'd just like to mention that because this is what I was saying before. Is yes, there's no evidence, but the possibility is still there because there's still time for evidence to come up, so we can't discount it as a hypothesis.
Right.
But
There was no evidence of black holes at one time.
yeah, exactly. So we can't discount it, but we can say at the moment there's no evidence for it, thus we're not going to believe it.
And you have to define your terms. What do we mean by God? If someone, I know it's kind of circular, but if someone was to say, look, I think my toaster is God, toasters exist, therefore God exists. Subjectively, in that person's mind, it's valid.
Mm.
Objectively, it doesn't mean a whole lot. It's kind of stupid.
Yeah.
But, if we're just talking about, just within your axiom and within your framework of an argument, you can make an argument for God. You can define a God into existence. Yeah. You can argue circularity, but who cares? Who cares?
I'd also I think, there's a little bit of a conversation to be had here. I mean, Dustin was saying as well in the chat, I used to see God, then I stopped doing hard drugs. And, I think this is something quite, special about what he's saying there because, in some respects, these revelations of God that, a lot of Christians say that they have, in some respects, I like to ask, those Christians, well, how do you know it's not a delusion? Mm-hmm. How do you know what you're seeing isn't just in your head? When you do drugs, you see things, but they're not real. They're not there. It's just chemical imbalance in the brain. So how can you if you're religious, how can you discount that as a possibility? And when we've got evidence that you can have delusions, but there is no evidence that there's a God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I was to play devil's advocate, I would say that, the nature of what you're describing isn't supposed to be objective. Maybe the vision of God or whatever is not supposed to be in reality like that. It's supposed to be only for you. How could you ever disprove that? You can't. And then someone could say, well, anybody that takes certain drugs are going to have certain hallucinations, or anybody who meditates are going to can come to a certain point where they will have certain feelings or visions or what have you. And you can say the argument is, well, that's the way God wants to be discovered for whatever reason, for sufficient reasons we don't know. That's how it is. Now, is that a good argument? No. But at the same time, it doesn't, arguments don't prove anything true or false. They just kind of, you can tell if it's a good goal, a good guideline or not. If you don't know something, then you want to have some sort of tool in your disposal that you can use to kind of come to the best explanation that you can at the time. But it doesn't mean that even if your arguments are valid and great, it doesn't mean that they map onto reality necessarily. I mean, look at the one favorite one that I like to use, and I think it's one T-Jump brings up too. And I've always talked about this, ironically, for a long time. And I think I've talked to you about this, was Einstein's theory of relativity, and the fact that time bends, it's malleable, and that, we have these event ontologies as a result, that, there's not this thing ontology, but these event ontologies. And this whole idea, to the consensus of philosophers and scientists at the time, it was just bunk. I mean, they thought Einstein was kind of crazy and kooky because, I mean, time bending, time being malleable. I mean, time is a philosophical concept. What he was talking about was just imagination stuff. It was all imagination, and he admitted it. Even one of his sayings was that what makes a great scientist is using your imagination, but then also being able to figure out a way to distinguish between the imagination and the concrete things in reality. And he figured out how to do it. And he pretty much just proved that time is bendable. It is based on physics. So all the naysayers were just immediately refuted, right? Mm-hmm. So that just kind of shows you that some of the most outlandish things that we may think are crazy can be true. Like even non-causality, these things, these quantum phenomenon we talk about all the time, these things don't make sense in the real world. I mean, or in our world, they are real, but they're at a level that we don't have any intuitive knowledge about them. We don't have any experience of them. And if you were to talk about these things before they were actually discovered, people would think you were just crazy or stupid. But we know that these things actually exist in reality. So just because we don't, see certain things in reality doesn't mean that they're just absolutely not true. That's the point in that. But we can recognize bad arguments, though.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a whole load of bad arguments that that you just hear time and time again. I think we covered some of that when we were discussing on the last show with Godless Engineer about some of these terrible arguments that you just hear over and over again, and every single time, the theists will go away, acting like, gotcha. I got you with that one, didn't I? And you're like, no, it was a terrible argument. It doesn't even deserve a response. It's how bad it is. But
yeah, they don't want. They're not real questions. Like some of the stuff that traditional Catholic was throwing at us, or Darth Dawkins, they're just kind of redundant questions that he asked over and over and over. And any way that you answer it is designed to be a trap. you know, because it all is supposed to lead to God, to their Christian God in particular. So they're gotcha moments, and really, the one thing that I keep in mind is that when it comes to real thought problems, the first rule of thumb when it comes to thought problems is stay away from yes no answers
Mm.
in questions. Those That right there is never going to be the answer, yes or no. It's never going to be the answer with a real legitimate thought problem. So these pseudo thought problems of presuppositional apologetics are just that. They're just an abuse of language,
Yeah.
pretty much.
Yeah, that's it's definitely worth thinking about, and I think it's just a shame that there isn't a lot more critical thinking being taught within our educational system and things like that. It seems to be getting a little bit worse each year, where you know people are just open to these to just these bad argumentations, and are just not thinking about you know what it means if they go on just accepting what they're told by some religious leader.
Well, it's an interesting topic. I mean, we're going to be talking about that Sunday morning on this other radio station that I help host
Mm.
called Let's Chat, and it's run by Free Thought Radio, and it's basically a atheist channel show, and it's up on YouTube under Let's Chat. And what we're going to be talking about this Sunday is that very topic about why do people believe certain things, or why do they let me pull it up really quick, in fact, because I'm trying to struggle with how to actually say it, but it's pretty much like this: your actions do not match your beliefs, or do they? Could it be that we invent reasons why we do things, like rationalize along a spectrum based on our DNA, and likely long before nature or nurture habits have meaningful effects on our wiring and brain, measured in microseconds or milliseconds? But how exactly do we make it work for us? So if it's true that our beliefs don't necessarily match up to our actions, how can we exploit that fact?
Mm.
So we're going to try to establish it as a fact, number one, at least scientifically. We're going to look at the data, look at the at what the neuroscience behind it actually says, and then figure out if maybe our beliefs are kind of like narratives that we tell after the fact. Kind of like, well, I do this because I'm a great person. Well, is that true, or did you do that because you were just wired to do it anyways? You were kind of determined to do it, and your story is just that. It's just a narrative that your consciousness tells you, because it's after the facts, after that stuff already ramped up and you took those actions and decisions, and so you kind of rationalize it afterwards. Is that really what's going on? And how can we know? And then how can we use that to our advantage? Like, can we prime ourselves in a certain way? Like, can we, do certain things that are more effective? Can we be a more causal impact towards ourselves and others, based on that information? So it's going to be an interesting show.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really looking forward to watching that. I think it's listening to it. It said it's
Well,
a
matter of fact,
podcast.
I'd like to bring you on as a guest if I could. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
I'd love that. That would be brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
I'll definitely try to make that happen. Maybe you can join in on that conversation.
Mm. Yeah, definitely a good conversation. And I've been doing some research myself into the neuroscience, and I do agree with what your premise on that. Your conclusion from the premises with that. Um, I did hear one professor in neuroscience who was explaining it, the reason why he thinks the what's happening with consciousness, and he explained it very similar by saying that, right, so your hand, your hand moves, your brain's made that happen, then you experience the conscious thought that you want to move your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now it does that, and the way he explained it was it does it because if it didn't give the illusion of free will, your brain would probably get fearful of the action of moving your hand.
That's right.
You'd be constantly wondering why things are happening. So it puts together this narrative, as you say, to so that we're not getting scared by every action that we do,
Including your own thoughts. Suppose you're not aware of, you don't know why you're thinking certain, because, I mean, face it, you can't stop thinking. If you were to close your eyes and try to stop thinking, thoughts are going to randomly appear. It's just going to keep coming, and in meditation, you actually work on that practice because it's a challenge. You never really achieve it. That's the whole thing. But it's a good practice in order to kind of strengthen your brain as a muscle, but also it kind of helps you be aware of the fact that there is no free will. Your thoughts come to you. You don't make those thoughts. They sort of appear before you. And that's what Buddhism teaches, that, the no self, anatta is what it's called. It's the teaching that there is no self, there is no free will, there is no soul, there's nothing supernatural about you. It's all illusion. And the Buddha talked about that everything you think, everything you perceive, it's all sort of a reconstruction of reality. And it kind of matches with neuroscience from what we see now, that, these things about thinking. And, when I did hallucinogens before, like DMT, I've done a few times. And when I did that, certain parts of my brain got shut down to where when thoughts occurred and things occurred at the time, I was sort of disconnected. So it seemed like there was this other entity talking to me, like all of this weird disconnected separateness sort of fell away and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of gives you a view of reality as it is outside of yourself, outside of your conscious self. So you have this feeling of being disembodied. You have this idea of other entities. It's all in your brain. It's all you, but it just appears and feels, very spooky in that sense, because like you said, it's scary. If you were to move your hand and do things and you're not having any sort of thought about why did you do it or any kind of narrative, it would be really weird. You would just kind of have this feeling of floating on a roller or going on a roller coaster you have no control of. It's just taking you all over the place, right? And that's what DMT is like.
Yeah. Are we ready to take a caller? We've got
Sure.
someone sitting in the background.
Awesome.
Pierce Watkins is wanting to chat, so let's see. I'll just let him in. Hello.
All right. Hello. Thanks for
Hey,
having
how you
me. I
doing?
appreciate it.
How are you doing tonight?
Doing awesome. Doing awesome. How are you guys?
Doing great. Having a nice combo.
Yeah, I've been tuning in. It's been a great conversation so far.
Oh, thank you very much.
Great.
What were you?
So I wanted to
talk
ask
about?
something pretty specific. So there's this group that I joined. I tend to join a lot of groups that are a bit extreme just for the sake of me getting in there and seeing what's happening. And one group that I joined was a Christian group. And I noticed that there was a lot of posting by this one fellow, and it turns out he was actually the guy who created this group. And it was a lot of homophobic, covered in the blood of Jesus, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of anti-atheist remarks, a lot of anti-other religious remarks.
Mm.
And he seemed to have a very, very literal interpretation of Christianity, of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And because of these reasons, I really wanted to try to break through to him, even just a little teeny tiny bit, just to put maybe just a seed of doubt in his mind. And I tried to use like street epistemology.
Mm-hmm.
I have talked to quite a few other fellows using that approach, and I've had a little bit of success. But with this fellow, I've had very, very little success. He almost always answers my questions with like, "You know nothing," or some sort of circular reasoning, like because of the Bible. And then if I ask, well, why is that? It always kind of turns into either he stopped responding, or it's just kind of another circular reason. So maybe I'm trying to do the impossible, but I just want your guys' thoughts on it.
I have a lot of experience with this. So I'm part of groups too, just curious, and I like the conversations, and I like discovering about people and how they think, and I have these conversations all the time. And yeah, they tend to shun you and shame you for questioning even the slightest little question. Like, I always make it a point with these people not to be abrasive or be contrarian with them, because it's easy to do that online, to come off very contrarian with your question. But always try to, make it sort of like a team effort. Like, the way that I put it is, well, let me get this straight. So you're saying you believe this, and what do you mean by that exactly? Get them to explain it totally. And so, interesting, and then kind of mirror it back to them. And if they agree, then you say, wow, so how can we test it? How can we test this together? And let them come up with an answer. And
okay,
that's a win right there. If they allow you to talk about testing it, then you're in. You've already got them past their defenses, and you've got them thinking along the lines that you're achieving your goal. Now, they're not going to change their mind. They're not going to now all of a sudden question their beliefs or anything like that. But what they are going to do is they're going to start explaining to you how they came about to believe what they did. And then you can just start following up with questions. Like, they may say, well, I believe because the Bible says this. Oh, okay. Why should I believe the Bible, or why should I be a Christian, do you think? Let them explain it. Ask them questions that you think they should be, because essentially they're explaining this stuff to themselves. And I would say that the most defensive people and the people that are ready to shut you down the fastest and challenge you and be contrarian to you are the most insecure people. Those are the ones that really doubt a lot. Those are the ones that doubt. The ones that avoid you altogether, or that those are the ones that are secure in their beliefs. They're not even part of groups like that. They're just, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness. I already know. We pretty much just stick to ourselves, and that's good enough. We don't need to be going out and arguing with people. If you find yourself going out and arguing with people, it means there's something in your brain you're not convinced of, and you're looking for that salesman point, in most cases. So that's kind of a good thing if you see people like that, but you just got to be very careful in how you conversate with them, Does that make sense?
I see exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and sometimes...
And this has been going on for like probably almost a year. I've been interacting with this fellow, so...
just keep up at it. I mean, if they're ever going to wake...
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there.
No, it's okay. Don't worry. So I just wanted to add, that what you're doing is good. Conversing with these people, because if they do have questions, your questions that you're asking them, may be the thing that wakes them up. Maybe the thing that just plants that little bit of seed of critical thinking and gets them to delve deeper into why it is that they believe certain things. So don't get disheartened by it. Sometimes it may seem like they, aren't aren't listening to you, but deep down, some of them will be listening.
And you can frame it as if you can frame it like you're looking for help. You can frame it in a way where, how do I know that this isn't just my imagination? Like, how do I know this is God's spirit and it's not just my imagination? How do you tell the difference? And let them tell you how they differentiate between a delusion and the Holy Spirit. And if they say, they'll usually say something like, well, it's a different feeling than other feelings, and you can say, yeah, but can feelings mislead me though? Do you think my feelings can mislead me? And, those are kind of leading questions in a way, but you can disguise them, and they'll go ahead and say, yeah, your feelings will mislead you. Oh, okay. Like, I know this Muslim guy, he's a neighbor. He says that, Allah is real because he has these same experiences like I do, like, that I get in church. Like, but of course he's wrong, but how do I know I'm not mistaken too? Maybe I'm just as wrong as he is. How can we figure that out? When you're getting through to them somehow, you're getting them to try to explain it to themselves. And that's what you're doing. You're kind of waking their little sleepy brain up,
Yeah, sure. And I suppose I probably should go back and possibly, if possible, I should build some rapport because, like I said, this has been going on for quite some time now, and probably the last month, my patience kind of wore down, unfortunately, and I kind of turned into a troll, unfortunately. But
yeah,
and that's probably not the way to go.
I do it all the time though because I get frustrated too, and it depends on how people come back at me. I'm very polite and I'm very reasonable with people, but if they, they can trigger me. I mean, I'm just a human like anybody else, and I'll give them. And some people they need that. Some people respect that more than just being kind and friendly and guiding them. Some people just want you to just beat them down with logic. And I've seen people actually come to the other side because of that. In some cases. I've had that experience. I was one of them, actually. I came to the other side because somebody beat me down with logic. So I know it works.
Yeah. So I'd definitely say keep up the good work, because it sounds like you're having some decent conversations there, and you never know, you might be the savior for this person that you've been chatting with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I sure hope so. We'll see how it turns out, I suppose.
Yeah, well, wish you the best of luck.
Happy Friday.
Yeah, happy Friday. I'm very glad it's Friday.
Me
Been a
too.
long week.
Me too.
All right, that's pretty much all I had for you guys. So take care and wish you all the best.
For calling in.
Thanks.
Yeah,
that was cool.
And, good conversation there. And I can understand when people are feeling like sometimes it's a futile endeavour, talking to theists on their own forums and things like that. But as you were saying, it's usually they're there because they do have questions.
And look, I think most of all, we all want to be understood. Probably more than people to agree with us, we want to be understood at least. And I'm the same way. If I'm talking to a theist and I'm making a point you know, I always look at it like, do you at least understand what I'm talking about? Do you at least understand my position? Like
Mm.
from where I'm sitting, do you understand the confusion? Do you understand why it's a question for me? Do you at least understand that? And I think the same thought process happens with the theists. They want you to understand that, hey, Jesus loves me and I feel this thing really strong. Or, Allah, I've submitted myself, you know, to Allah in the teachings of the prophet. And it's benefited me. And I see so much sense in theism to explain the trees and the mountains and the beautiful sunset and all of that. And they just want you to understand that and acknowledge it. And I'll give them that. It doesn't cost a thing. I'll say, yeah, you know what? I even told there was a guy named Otangelo. I had a conversation with him, and he was telling me, yeah, but it makes more sense under theism. The world, look at the beauty, look at that. I'm like, you know what? You're exactly right, man. It is. It makes a lot more sense under your worldview than mine. Absolutely, 100% it does. But because something makes sense, does that mean it's true? How can we test that? How can we figure that out? And go from there.
Yeah, definitely. And I've had conversations with him on Tangelo as well, and so he doesn't seem to grasp certain concepts that like that not everything that makes sense is true. And he doesn't seem to, and he talks a big game about about how all of the science matches up with theism and all of this, but he doesn't know simple concepts within science.
Yeah. And I try to keep things very simple. Like, it like a really simple question could be, first of all, do you mean to say that everything was created by an intelligent designer / God? Everything? Of course they'll say yes. Well, if everything was created and designed, how do you tell the difference between an undesigned thing and a designed thing if everything is designed? How do we tell the difference?
Yeah.
And get them to try to explain themselves, And I did that with Otangelo. And a lot of times they don't know what to say and they just run away. They change the topic. And with people like that, they're just not ready to open up. It's just not their time to open up. But what you can do is plant seeds. You can plant seeds of questions that they'll have to think about, whether they ignore you or not. They're going to think about it. Believe me. They've heard what you said.
Oh, exactly. And definitely, definitely worth thinking about when you're speaking with these people. As you say, as you said to Pierce, it's just a case of asking the questions, just continuously asking those questions and leading them to come to their own realization down the path that most of us went through in our deconversions. And it's when you understand the power of that, then you realise it's not a futile exercise at all. But you do have to also realise that it is going to be stressful at times. Talking to people who are coming back with bad argumentation continuously, thinking it's good argumentation. That is going to drain, it's going to drain the old brain matter after a while. And you just need to be careful of that as well. And
yeah.
Always
and it can
take the time to protect yourself from that. And if you do need to take a little bit of time off from having those conversations, do that. That's
absolutely. Yeah. I know that after the debate with Victor, me and him, he was just continuing to, kind of prod me and stuff. And, on the chat and on the comments in the Facebook. It's like, oh, I killed you and I destroyed you on the debate, and laughing and laughing and laughing and trying to mock me and humiliate me.
Hmm.
I was kind of, playing sportsmanship with it, and we were going back and forth, and it got to where he kept calling me a liar. Like, you said you were a Christian teacher. You lied. You're a liar. You didn't even know what hermeneutics are or whatever. It's like, and it gets bogged down in all this little petty drama stuff, and it's like, you have to watch that, because you have to remember, what is your point in all of this? What are you trying to accomplish? What's in it for you? Is it just to have arguments with people over character assassination? And you have to back off. Like, at some point you have to just let them have it, and like, okay, I'm out. If I'm a liar, so be it, and give up, because it's not, pick your battles, because at a certain point it just gets childish, and you don't want to be stooping to their level, because they'll beat you every time. Because you're trying to keep it up here, and you're not used to playing in that little low level type of thing. And they apparently that's where they live. That's where they operate. So if you're not operating that on that level, then you have no business there with them, because they're going to kill you.
Yeah, and it's a very disingenuous way of arguing with someone as well, isn't it? When the other person's trying to have a reasonable debate, like you were reasonable throughout the entire debate with him, with Victor, and I was watching it, and it was awful, because he was just literally laughing at you,
Mm-hmm.
and I was wondering at the time, if he was having a face to face with you in person,
Yeah.
would he be laughing at your face?
Right.
Or was that simply because he was, that had that buffer zone of, being online?
Well, Wes called it, well, not Wes, but Justin said it's this the difference between internet debaters and real debaters. You've got your internet apologists, and you've got your real apologists. You've got your people that understand the arguments and the decorum and the etiquette and the honor that goes into it. It's like any sport, it's kind of like, you've got street ball and you've got basketball, and the street ball is for the people that just want to play dirty. And it really, there's no dignity in that. And so they resort to elbows and kicks and trips and stuff like that. But in ball, there's rules, everybody conducts themselves professionally, and you score legitimate points. And it's the same thing with debates. Let's stay on point. Let's avoid ad hominem attacks. Let's avoid laughing at your interlocutor. Let's avoid just the childish stuff, because we're not doing childish stuff here. We're doing grown man stuff right now, and some people just don't get it. And I told them, like, even this time, I said, we can call each other out and do ad hom attacks all online and on chat, and that's all fun and good. But when we get on camera and we get out here live, let's keep it professional. Let's keep it clean. Think about your audience. It's not about you. It's about your argument. Think about your argument and how the people are perceiving it, because people don't care about. In fact, I think people are going to lose respect for you if they see you doing ad homs and stuff like that. They people can tell it's shallow. People want to know, what are your arguments? But yeah, it's experience. I think a lot of experience has to do with that too.
I'd be quite interested to see in your next debate with him, if he, is a little bit more calmer. But by the way, you said you're having another debate with him, didn't you? Yeah. Who's modding that debate? Is that Ozzy?
Yeah, yeah, a couple of atheist mods.
All right. So it's not Oz again.
Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So yeah, it would be interesting to see because I mean, I don't think if Oz was modding, he would do it again because Oz called him out on that. So with it being somebody else modding, it would be interesting definitely to see if he goes down the same route.
Yeah, I hope not.
Yeah, I hope not. And if he does, I'd say to you, definitely feel free to call him out on it.
Oh yeah, I would. Like, it's already been established that his behavior was kind of just slimy,
Yeah.
and he continues online with the sliminess and calling me a liar. He even put me through a gauntlet. Like, he created this big post on Facebook. It said, Scott is a liar. He said he was a Christian. He wasn't. He said he was a teacher in Christianity. He wasn't. And we're going to prove it. I want every theist here to ask him, or Christians here, to ask him 3 questions. And if he can't get it wrong, it's going to expose him. So all these Christians asked me these questions, and basically his at the end of it was like, yeah, but if you were a real Christian, you would still be a Christian. That was basically it. He said, you've been exposed as a liar because if you were really a Christian, you would have never left to begin with. So we just exposed you as a liar. Like, what?
The whole Scotsman fallacy.
Yeah,
Yes.
So you never believed in Christianity if you left it. So I was like, so if a child once believed in Santa Claus and they no longer believe it, does that mean that children don't really believe in Santa Claus? Well, that's different.
It's always different, isn't it?
Always.
It's good. It's never to do with the fact that there is no evidence or reasonable reason to to believe in God. It's always down to it's different with God. Special pleading. At its finest.
Oh yeah, that's what it is. And
there's a danger to that though, because then that you start special pleading for the existence of your God, and then that moves on to eventually special pleading for I'm a good Christian, I couldn't do these actions that I've been accused of, when someone gets caught for doing something and then they use the fact that they're religious as an excuse to get out of the punishment and things like that. And there was conversation going on in the chat earlier on in the show, exactly about that. They were discussing about elders and how on platform some of these elders are the nicest people. They've got all the charm and everything, and everyone loves them and they're beloved by the entire congregations. But then behind closed doors, they're doing horrific crimes. Against them same people that hold them in this beloved, esteemed position.
Right.
And that's the danger of religion, and that's what it'll lead to.
Appealing to authority, and just everything that they say and do cannot be wrong. It's like, the appeal to authority is such a fallacy. It's so misguided. It's it's they believe whatever their leader says about topics that they have no business being leaders on. Like, the appeal to authority pretty much means that this guy is making these claims, but he's not an authority on these things. So it's like a Jehovah's Witness leaders telling you about evolution. Well, they're not biologists. They're not scientists. They're just guys that got promoted within their local congregation of Jehovah's Witnesses. They're not scientists, so you can't trust them about the science. But people do. People listen to them. They listen to the Watchtower Society, what they have to say about evolution and cosmology and things like that, because people appeal to authority figures like that. they're not appealing to the experts, which is what you're supposed to do. That's the valid thing to do. It's why we get second opinions when we go to the doctor. You don't go to your car mechanic to go check, for cancer.
Yeah, exactly. I actually, I'm not sure whether I actually did a video on this back when I was doing pre-record videos, but I think I was planning on, and I never got around to it. But I was looking through a lot of the old, the beliefs that we held, when we were Jehovah's Witnesses, and that we were taught, through the Watchtower articles and things, and it is astonishing the amount of times that it says, "Oh, this scientist said this," and it has a quote, and then they don't give you any corresponding information. But if you look up where the quote and that scientist, where he said that,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost always they've taken it completely out of context to what he was actually saying.
Oh yeah, they did that even with Richard Dawkins.
Yeah.
The Evolution Creation book. I think they quoted Richard Dawkins as saying that nature definitely has the hallmark of design, something like that. And if you kept reading it, you would read where he says that, and this hallmark of design is so illusory. It's so misleading.
Yeah.
Like he was trying to talk about how easy it is to assume that there's intelligent design in nature. And so he had to start off by saying, obviously, nature looks designed, but, and he goes on, but they just cut the but part out and they just kept the first part. Such cherry picking, that's such dishonesty. That's like,
Yeah.
That's, to me, that's kind of like evidence right there I wish I would have picked up on. Like, I really wish I had critical thinking skills and would have actually picked up Dawkins' book, because if I would have saw that, which later I did, but it was long after I was not a witness, but if I just saw that, that would have been smoking gun evidence that they are intentionally misleading people.
Oh yeah, the dishonesty within Jehovah's Witnesses is astonishing. Though I mean, did you see the trial at the not the trial, the accusations are through against Lloyd Evans?
Mm-mm.
That was astonishing. The way that they would, I won't go too much into it because he's got videos on it on his channel, but
Mm-hmm.
they were accusing him of hate crime, and they would one of the accusations. They'd looked through all of his live streams, and they'd found some hate speech against Jehovah's Witnesses in his comments in the live stream from someone else, another user.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, "Oh, Lloyd Evans is committing hate crime against Jehovah's Witnesses." He'd never even said it. They just cherry picked, something that he had no control over.
Right.
And then gone, yeah, see, look, we were right. He is committing hate speech, and it's that's just dishonest. It's dishonest dealing, and
Yeah, that you can't expect much out of them. It's they are some people that I'm so weird talking to them, because it has to be because of my experience for such a long time with those guys, that when I see them, I kind of see this in my perception of them. I see this like real staunch, stubborn, arrogant, persona with every one of them. Like, I know that that's not right for me to think of them that way. But when I see them and I start to talk to them, I just start perceiving this, this same stubborn, we're the truth, you're not the truth. Like, it's such a hard way to communicate with them. It's like, I feel like I'm running up against a wall that I know from the outset I'll never climb that wall to get to them. It's like I just assume it. Like, and I know that's wrong, because I was one of the most aggressive witnesses there was. Like, I lived for field service, and I love talking to people about Jehovah, and I love talking about the Bible, and I always had a New World Translation everywhere I went, ready to, start witnessing. Like, I have a group of friends at the congregation. We used to just sit around and talk about our experiences during the day, every day. Oh man, today, man, I got this one guy and we had this conversation. Like, we would just celebrate those conversations, and we'd come back to my house and have a drink and just talk. That's all we talk about. So I know I was one of those people, but look at me now, so I forget that when I see witnesses that, these people are human. They can be reached. It just has to be the right time, and you have to say the right things.
Yeah, I remember, those conversations as well when, how you'd, when you chose witness and, you were discussing the time on the doorstep, although mine were a little bit more like, most of the time was, you'd never believe what this householder said to me today, when the insult they threw at me today when I knocked on the door.
Yeah. That's the thing. It's like, that's why I became a ministerial servant, because like, I noticed there were people that were more in complaining mode. Like, they were just in this mindset of, I can never get through. Like, they're always in this drab, and that's part of the problem with Jehovah's Witnesses, is that you're put through this stupid life, of going and talking to people about some shit that's boring as hell to you, much less them. And especially if it's boring to you, that's all you're going to convey to them, is that this is some boring shit that we're about to talk about right now. But bear with me because I have to do it, And so, of course, those engagements were terrible for everybody involved, And so they would come back. But for me, I was so enthusiastic about it. Like, it's like the feeling I got was like somebody opened a window. Like, I was in this drab, gray room my whole life, and then somebody opened the window and showed me a colorful world outside. So for me, it was like, whoa, there's color in the world. There's something in the world that's great, And it probably says a lot about where I came from. If Jehovah's Witnesses was such a great positive thing in my perception, imagine what the world must have been like for me. If Jehovah's Witnesses was a better option, that's a sad testament of life. Yes. But that's how it was, And so for me, it was always me being super excited and super zealous. And they just promoted me pretty quick. They thought I was going to be an elder. They thought all these things, they talked to me all the time. But man, when I changed over, it was like drastic. I think I talked to somebody at work a few times, an atheist, and he just asked the right questions and made the right arguments, and we went at it, man. But he would just beat me down with logic. And I was so sure about my beliefs. I know that they could stand up to the most rigorous of testing. Because if you've got the truth will always stand up, no matter how rigorous the testing and the questions are. So it really baffled me that my truth, the truth, was nothing to these sort of questions and these sort of arguments. They just had no effect, not just on him, but on me. Like, his arguments were pretty good, and I couldn't really answer them. And and I felt like, wait a minute, something's wrong. It's not supposed to go down like this.
Yeah, so that's the thing, when you chose witness, you do think that your argumentation is, there's no way it could be possibly ever refuted. And I think that that's probably one of the bigger reasons why, for a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, it comes down, it comes down to soul crushing defeat when that just isn't the case. When you're not getting any, you're not converting anybody,
Mm-hmm.
and then on top of that, you've not got your own personal crushing defeat
Mm.
from that. You've also got the governing body constantly, telling you that you need to be getting, more converts in, and it's the most important work ever, and there's nothing better you can be doing with your life. But oh, here's little old me. I can't seem to do anything. I must be absolutely shit at
Yeah.
arguing with people.
Yeah, that stuff plays a factor on your mind, man. It's stress because, especially if you're, first of all, your experience of the world, for me, anyways, my experience of life was not very good to begin with. Like, I didn't have any money. I was broke. I was under a lot of stress. As a young guy, I was only like, what, 20 years old. And then here come these guys talking about a paradise on earth and all these things are going to pass away. It's like, all right, I hit the jackpot, you know. and but as the years go on, and you're dealing with not getting anybody to do Bible studies, you're going door to door and you're not getting anybody. And on top of that, you've got these stresses in life, money problems, and you've got the society telling you you can't go to school, you can't go to college, because I was cutting grass for a living back then, and I was a janitor, but I wanted to get into computers. I wanted to like do something else. I wanted to get out of that situation. And I used to work at a place called the State Police, Virginia State Police, big old complex. And they had like a computer room, and I would see all the guys in the computer room dressed nice and driving nice cars and doing computer stuff. And I thought that was so interesting, and talking to these guys. And I was thinking, I sure would like to do it. They're like, all you got to do is take a few classes, man. So I went and talked to the elders. Like, no, man, your priority needs to be, you've already got a family, you've got a wife, you've got a home. You don't have time for that. You've got to put the rest of the time that you have, you need to put that into witnessing and moving up in the organization. You're stop putting your emphasis on the world. That's just the devil trying to mislead you away. And you get enough of that shit. It's like you said, man, you get discouraged. And you just want to like ready to leave that shit. So yeah, it all plays a role, I think. But yeah, I was just seeing a comment here from Atheist Mama Bear said, I'm so glad I sucked at getting Bible studies. Well, me too. Me too. Because I would hate to have to, knowing I pulled people into this shit, and they never got out. That'd be really sad on my conscience.
Yeah, we've actually got Antangelo in the chat. Welcome to the stream, Antangelo. How are you doing? He's in the background actually. I think he wants a conversation, so
Cool.
I will get him in.
Yes, sir.
How are you doing, Antangelo?
Oh, Tangelo, we can't hear you. Are you muted?
I'm not sure. You might need to check your audio settings on Tangelo. I'm not sure. You might need to leave and come back in. Sometimes StreamYard does this. Yeah, there we go. Can we hear you now?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right. Hello, guys.
What's
How
going
you
on, my
doing,
man?
Yeah, fine, all right. And you guys?
Doing
I
good.
hope you are not in the snow. In where are you in the States? In the snow or?
Not me. I'm in Florida, so it's not snowing, but it was 30, 40 degrees today. So it's kind of chilly and windy.
Okay. Well, I have always about 30 degrees where I am here in Brazil. Never cold weather. So
Oh, you mean Celsius?
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I'm going by Fahrenheit. So
I don't know how much 30 degrees Celsius are in Fahrenheit.
I know that's interesting. It's got to be really low because I know Brazil right now is what it's probably pretty mild and warm right now, right?
Yes, yes. I have. I'm 300 kilometers above Salvador de Bahia, so not very far from um, the equator. I think about 2,000 kilometers from the equator. So we have all year round nice warm
Oh,
weather.
Oh, sounds beautiful. I live in old rainy England. It's very rarely get about 2 days of hot weather a year. It's,
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah,
for sure.
I fled from Switzerland when I was younger, just to go to some warmer places.
Yeah. I was just talking about you, Otangelo. We had I was talking about having conversations like dialogues between theists and atheists, because like we like to have civil conversations and upbuilding conversations, and we talk about like how to form questions and frame things. And I remember one time we had a conversation. I don't know if you remember me, but we had a conversation on Facebook a few months ago. And I think we were talking about evolution and design, intelligent design, I think was the topic. And yeah, we were talking about that. And I was mentioning that, I like to keep things civil. And I think we had a really good conversation back then. I think you were expounding upon, the reasons why you feel like evolution is not, or abiogenesis, I think what it was at the time, was not a valid explanation. And I was telling you that my position was I don't know the ontology of how life began to evolve on Earth. And then you were saying that intelligent design makes more sense because you were talking about the motors and gears and small, molecules and things of this nature. I think flagellum or something like that you were talking about.
Yeah, the flagellum has not necessarily something to do with the origin of life, but yeah, basically, I mean, the more that you dwell into the science and try to explain how life could have started, then you will start to see the problems actually.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah,
that's what I am saying. And I say basically two things. I have two approaches here. One is eliminative inductions in the sense that we have basically two possible explanations. One is random chemical reactions prebiotically, and the other is that there was a guiding hand which directed the process to make life. Evolution wasn't a mechanism because in order to have evolution, you require replication and being able to select something, and that wasn't there. So you have to choose between these two options, and in order to make a rational choice, of course, you need to know a little bit about the science.
Right.
isn't the
And
third
like
option,
for me, I'm not a scientist. Like I'm probably the worst person to talk to about biology and things like that. Like I read it, but I can't really retain all the, the definitions of words and things of that nature, and to really have a really good coherent explanation and things of that nature. I'm a very simple person, and for me, I usually just appeal to the experts in any given field and realize that these guys know more than me, and I can read their literature. I can read, the textbooks and understand certain things. I can understand that one thing I do know, and even listening to many theists, is that, intelligent design, abiogenesis is a problem. Like, there is no solution to it. Scientists will tell you that it's still under research. They're still looking at the problem. So for me, I just have to be comfortable to say I don't know. That, science is looking at it, and I don't really know. Now, I can look at one question that I think that I posed to you, was that if everything in the world